That is the myth that is killing us.
People have been fed this misinformation.
We've all heard that butter causes heart attacks. We've all been fed the same lie about fats. This is why willpower won't work, because there is no such thing as willpower.
You say that we can actually reverse some disease processes with food. How can this happen?
We ate our way into this, so we can eat our way out of it.
Tonight, we're continuing our conversation about the American epidemic of chronic illness, especially in children. Now, yesterday, we spoke with Callie Means, who is working with RFK Jr. to spearhead the Make America Healthy Again initiative. Dr. Shanahan, a board-certified family physician and author of 3 books on nutrition, and Jillian Michaels, one of the most popular fitness trainers in the U.S., who has become a very active health advocate. Here's what happened yesterday. There is one person who has been relentlessly talking about America's health, and now he's in a position to do something about it.
During COVID, we had the highest death rate of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. No country did as poorly as us. When you ask CDC, why is that? They say because we are the sickest people on earth. The average person who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases.
Earlier this month, Congress confirmed RFK Jr. as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. I am joined by Callie Means. He is determined to building a healthier America for generations to come.
We're being poisoned. We fundamentally have 10,000 chemicals in our food that aren't legal in any other country. We are funding and writing the check for poisonous, addictive food to our society, and it's criminal.
There are 10,000 chemicals going into America's food supply that are not approved in other countries.
That's right. The purpose is to make food cheap and addictive, which is what food companies do. I've yet to meet an American who wants their kids to be sick, but we're committing almost genocide on our kids with what's happening with metabolic conditions.
Fitness expert, nutritionist, and health advocate Jillian Michaels has devoted her expertise and her time to fighting for the health of all children in America.
Dr. Phil, this is where it all begins. Big Ag has received about $500 billion in subsidies from 95 to 2022. And that means that $500 billion goes to grow genetically engineered monoculture crops soaked in their chemicals, which the USDA is tasked with selling this surplus of calories. And then they shape the food guidelines through the food pyramid. And what's happening is you have a loaded gun pointed at your kids that you're paying for with your tax dollars, and it's all designed to encourage addiction and overconsumption.
Jillian, you believe in exercise, you believe in people taking control of their own life.
Taking agency is a piece of it, but the reality is 74% of Americans are overweight and obese, and it is not because they're lazy or stupid. It's because this system is rigged on every level against them in the ways that we're telling you right now.
We're joined by Dr. Kate Shanahan. Doctor, you say the standard American diet isn't just scientifically wrong, it's absolutely dangerous.
Yes, it is absolutely morally wrong as well. American doctors were fed misinformation about fats way back in the 1940s. And ever since then, the fats that we've been eating have been vegetable seed oils, which are industrial products that never existed before the industrial era. Canola oil originally was used as machine oil in Canada during World War II.
So canola oil they were using to make a tank run, and now we're eating it.
Yes, that is exactly right.
I have a strong belief that you know what Merit TV is all about. We're about talking to the heartland. Give me the facts and I'll start making noise. And that's what we're wanting to do, is give people the facts. Tonight, we're going to meet real people who are actually experiencing these issues. But before we hear their stories, I want to ask you a really important question, Dr. Shanahan. You say that we can actually reverse some disease processes with food. How do we do this?
100%. We ate our way into this so we can eat our way out of it, right? We have to eat our way out of it. We can't medicate our way out of a dietary problem. We need to lose our fear of so many of these foods that we've been told are bad for us, right? We have heard not to use butter. Well, if you want to get your children to eat vegetables, there's no better way than to melt a whole ton of butter and pour it over that steamed broccoli and add a little bit of salt and maybe a little garlic. Your kids, I bet your kids like garlic butter. They like garlic bread. Well, garlic broccoli is just totally delicious. So we have to get over some of these programmed fears. We have to re-embrace the real foods that our ancestors, that people in this country were eating every single day 100 years ago, when, by the way, there was almost no obesity, almost no heart attacks, when chronic disease in children was absolutely unheard of. Some people are like, I am so busy. I'm a busy mom. I don't have time to pack lunch for myself. Okay, do you have time to slice some cheese, bring a couple handful of nuts, or maybe bring an apple and slice it in half and put some peanut butter on there? I'm just talking about really simple, ready-to-eat foods. These are the original fast foods.
Right.
Cheese and things like preserved meats, like your prosciutto or your things that we call sandwich meats these days. Those are foods that people used to bring with them to work before you had your DoorDash and all that kind of stuff. And they are extraordinarily healthy, but we have told that we are not supposed to eat them because of the animal fat. And that is the myth that is killing us. When I work with people, one of the hardest things to do is to help them just accept that you can eat these delicious foods. You can have a hamburger. You can put cheese on your hamburger. Like, what's better than a perfectly cooked steak in butter sauce? You can put salt on your food. That is another lie. Salt doesn't cause any kind of disease. It is actually impossible for a human being to eat too much salt, because if we oversalt our food, do we want to swallow it? No, it's disgusting. If somebody forces us, we get thirsty, we drink more water, we pee out the problem. There are two major myths, really, the fat and the salt. And just rethinking, going back to what people used to do with the fatty foods that they ate that were delicious, satiating, very simple, and not fearing the salt.
That's how we grew up.
Yeah.
And that's been hijacked. And Jillian, Callie, that's something you've looked at, that they're manipulating to maximize these cravings that people get.
Yes, and what I recommend this is something called a dopamine detox. And this actually is the work of Dr. Anna Lembke, who wrote Dopamine Nation. She told this from an emotional perspective of, it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. They are chemically addicted to the food. And if you do not break that chemical addiction, they don't stand a chance. And then, heaven forbid, they have a little bit of willpower. As I mentioned, they make sure to surround you with the food, because willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired. And if the food sits in front of you all day long and you have a moment of vulnerability, you're going to partake. So finding a way to refrain for about 30 days helps break the chemical addiction. So you could start leaning towards what Dr. Shanahan is talking about and start moving more. And if I could just say one more thing, Dr. Phil, when we're looking at these GLP-1 drugs that have become so popular, like Ozempic or Wegovy, what do? Well, they mimic a satiety hormone that our bodies already make. It's called GLP-1. So what's going to naturally release GLP-1? Well, protein, fiber, and fat. But when you drink a soda, it doesn't have any of those three things. And in fact, it actually does the exact opposite. It triggers a sugar crash and it makes you hungrier, thereby undermining your satiety. And that isn't even looking at the way it impacts the pleasure center of your brain.
Yeah, you say the craziest part is they even brag about these things being addictive.
Yes, you can't eat just one.
Yeah, there you go. Bet you can't eat just one. Yeah, that's kind of coming back to haunt them. long about now. I don't even remember who said that, so the ad didn't work. But
Lay's. Dr. Phil, it was PepsiCo and Lay's.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up. All right, a mother is here who says her children are already facing obesity and chronic health issues, and she's worried they'll have a lifetime of problems if she can't figure out how to make a change in what she's feeding them. We're going to see if we can't help next. Having trouble taking your business to the next level? Financial Yield Solutions, Inc., or FYSI for short, provides tailored solutions for businesses generating $1 to $10 million annually. For tax planning, advertising, and retirement strategies to scaling operations, FYSI helps businesses thrive with $500 billion raised for AI tech under the Trump administration. Businesses cannot afford to be left behind. FYSI can even help you explore AI integration to cut costs and boost profits. With over 14 years of experience, FYSI specializes in solving the exact challenges business owners face. Business owners can book a free business review today to transform their operations, boost profits, and secure their financial future. Visit FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. That's FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. Do you ever notice how foot pain just sneaks up on you? One day you're moving just fine, and the next, every step feels like a chore. Now, maybe you're used to walk a few miles a day, but now, halfway through, your feet are already aching. Or standing for just a couple hours leaves you sore and worn out. Well, listen, I get it, and so does G-Defy. That's G as in gravity and Defy as in defying pain. These shoes absorb shock, take the pressure off your feet, knees, and back, and help you move with ease. And I'm not just saying that. Their claims are FTC approved. Right now, you can try them for yourself with 30% off orders over $120. So just go to gdefy.com, that's GDEFY.com, and use your code Dr. Phil at checkout or text Dr. Phil to 91888 to receive your 30% off. Take care of your feet and they'll take care of you. I want to introduce Caitlin, an influencer who is documenting her massive weight loss journey on social media. Now, she was 600 pounds at this time last year. Now she's lost 200 pounds. She said she was born into an obese family, and now she wants to break the cycle and get herself and her sons healthier.
I have struggled with my weight my whole life. It really has affected the quality of my life. When I stepped on the scale and saw that not only was I over 500 pounds, I was pushing 600 pounds, I was just like in complete denial. I was disgusted. Growing up, I was always overweight. I was considered morbidly obese at a very young age, and it's just skyrocketed from there. I grew up in the projects. We were definitely a lower class. My heaviest weight in high school was probably around like 350. I had my first child at 23, about 4 years after graduation, and I was 509 when I was pregnant with my son. Hunter has been diagnosed with child obesity, and Polly is currently following in his footsteps. I feel like I have failed my kids, but I also realize that it's not too late. They are only 6 and 10, and I am taking back my life at 34. My kids have seen me lose 200 pounds this year. It is extremely important to me that my kids get healthy with me. I truly believe that we can break the cycle in our family, in our generations, going forward with obesity.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on undertaking that journey and the success that you've had so far.
Thank you.
So what have you done to change what's happening?
So I started my journey at the beginning of the year, like a lot of people, with a New Year's resolution. And I lost 79 pounds on my own. Just, changing my eating habits, focusing a lot on protein. Portion size was really important to me. And then April 22nd of this year, I did have weight loss surgery. I just hit 200 pounds down the other day. It's just really focusing on my macros, which I'm learning about, carbs, fat, protein, and just really focusing on portions and making healthier choices.
A lot of people think having that surgery is like an easy way out, shortcut. There's nothing easy about that at all, is there?
No, I mean, I ate myself to 600 pounds. I have an addiction to food. And, they did surgery on my stomach organ. They did nothing to my brain. I still am addicted to food, and I can't avoid food like someone with an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction. I am surrounded by food and need food to fuel my body on a daily basis. So I am fighting a mental battle every day to fight my addiction to food.
Yeah, there is a difference there. If it's alcohol, you can abstain 100%. You don't have to interact with the substance. But with food, you can't go to complete abstinence. You have to interact with the substance, which would make it really hard for an alcoholic. If they had to interact, they had to drink some,
Right.
would make it particularly difficult. But you do have to eat, and so it's hard. And as Jillian was saying, one of the best things you can do is to program your environment to support your goals, which means you've got to clean out your environment of everything that you don't want to be eating, but you have to repopulate it with the things you do want to eat because you don't want to be controlled by the fear of being hungry. Have you been listening to the conversation that we've been having?
I have, and I agree completely. I'm guilty of thinking, butter is the bad, evil thing. You shouldn't be eating butter, you know what I mean? And things like that. So it's been very informative so far.
Yeah. And also, you need to change what you're teaching your children as well, right?
Exactly.
Because they don't have the ability to go to the store and make selections and choose their diet and all. That comes from you. So you can be a role model and also provide them with what they need. And that's what's important for them if they're going to have a chance.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be a battle, right? This is like such an intimate part of your relationship with your children. And that is your relationship. You're teaching them to have a relationship with food. And when you enjoy what you're eating and are proud of what you're eating and it makes you feel good, they see that. Now, one of the things that I've discovered and I want to share with you here that is so important is that something that seed oils do to our metabolism. They change the way our brains crave energy. Instead of craving for nutrition, instead of having an appetite that is kind of a small, quiet little reminder of mealtime, that's what hunger really is supposed to be. It is an intense emergency because your brain is not getting enough energy because your blood sugar is dropping. This is something that we call hangry. So a lot of people are familiar with this, right? When I was a kid, that wasn't a word. If the kids were hungry, we were told, go back outside and play. We didn't have meltdowns. And it's not that we were just better behaved. It was that our metabolisms were capable of fueling our brain with energy between meals so that we didn't need to snack. And what seed oils do to our metabolism is they stop the flow of energy from our body fat to our cells, and especially our brains, so that our brains need so much blood sugar that our blood sugar levels drop. And this is why we have hangry, and this is why willpower won't work. And studies have shown this. Clinical psychologists have designed trials. When people's blood sugar is following, their willpower implodes. There is no such thing as willpower.
Well, willpower is a myth. It's emotionally driven, and emotions are fickle. You're all gung-ho when you're emotionally jacked to do it, but then when you don't feel like it, your willpower's gone. You got to program your environment to support your goal. Let me ask you this. How is it that people haven't known this? Can we put up the food pyramid? We've been funding this forever, right? And when you go look at what kids are being fed in school, it's not healthy.
This is one of the deadliest documents in American history. I mean, look how shameful the bottom of that pyramid is. It's sugar and things that turn into sugar. And the tragic thing is that Americans listen to their health leaders. And then in the 10 years after this came out, the share of our diet that went to carbs went up 20%. And we went away from animal-based fats and the things that actually sustain us. So this actually did dictate behavior. When the Surgeon General said smoking isn't good, smoking rates plummeted. I can't emphasize this enough. If there's a real awakening in this country, real leadership from the NIH and scientific leaders, if they come and say, we've had a PSYOP in this country, we're going to have truth and reconciliation on that, and we've got to get back to real food. We've got to get back to steak and butter and broccoli and non-ultra-processed food. We'll have a revolution in this country. It can happen very fast because it happened quickly. But this is all from a profit motive. The cigarette industry created that document when they bought the food companies. And the healthcare industry has stood silent and complicit because they profited from this.
So the tobacco companies buy the food companies, and then they push this, and then the healthcare companies stand up and applaud because that means everybody's going to get unhealthy. So now they have lifetime patients with chronic diseases, which account for 95% of the budget.
And that's not conspiratorial that they applaud. When you get to the rubber hitting the road and the standards of care, our CMS guidelines, so these are all technical things, but we got to understand this. Our standard of care is made, as you know, by the American Medical Association. Our government outsources our care guidelines. The American Medical Association is a pharma lobbying group. We have chosen, as a country, as a HHS, that Bobby Kennedy's taking over, to outsource our medical guidelines to a pharma lobbying group. So they collect money from pharma, they outsource their subspecialty guidelines to the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association, which takes money from food companies. We are literally turning over our standards of care in this country, the $4.5 trillion of healthcare. So we can change this quickly. As Dr. Shanahan said, food was the problem, but food can be the solution. There's no reason that your child and children can't be prescribed food to reverse these issues.
See, the deck is stacked against you, is what we're telling you. And we're wanting to unstack that deck. Coming up, Caitlin says her kids are overweight for their age. And we're going to talk about how you can change that cycle. And we'll be right back. The IRS is the largest collection agency, with April 15th fast approaching. It's more aggressive than ever. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting's not an option. The smart move is to get ahead of this. Listen, never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS. Now, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. That's tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now. $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. Well, we're back with Caitlin, and I was just asking her, with the substantial weight loss she has, is she's feeling better, if her lab work is normalizing, is coming back together, and she said yes, right?
Yeah. I was eating myself to immobility, and now I am completely mobile. I'm not exaggerating. There was a point where I could not walk from my parked car outside my house into the house without rushing to sit down. Now I'm living my life. The quality of my life has changed drastically. And one of the hard things to admit is, at my heaviest weight, my kids' quality of life was being affected.
Of course.
So I'm not only changing my life, I'm changing their life. And I've taken responsibility and ownership, and I'm doing what I have to do to try to get my kids in better health.
Yeah, and it does affect them because parent is both a verb and a noun.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a parent and you have to parent, and that means you have to be able to get up and move and be with them and take them places and attend their events and that sort of thing. And Jillian, we talked about agency before. She's embedded in a system that's programmed against her. But when you watch a commercial for a fast food franchise, they don't show you much of the food. They show you bright lights and acceptance and smiles, and it's like, hey, come here, everybody's happy, everybody's accepted. It's a con job A to Z, is it not?
Oh my goodness. I mean, they get the world's biggest celebrities to sell you fast food and soda and chips. They've got cartoon characters like Toucan Sam and Captain Crunch, which kind of reminds you of all the cartoon characters that used to sell kids cigarettes. A few other things I wanted to say. You mentioned that your son has autism. 1 in 34 kids now has autism, and it used to be, I think, 1 in 10,000 when I was a child. There are so many different factors here, and I just want to take this off of your plate psychologically because you are not alone here. This is not your fault. And the reality is that yes, this system has been rigged against you, and now it is time to do what you're doing and fight back in the ways that you're fighting back. But should you run into obstacles, should you struggle, it's because of the way, literally, I'll say it again, this system is rigged. And I also want to say this to you. Lead by example. Get your kids into activities. Control the environment, like Dr. Phil is telling you. I tell you this to help you understand that we can dot the I's, we can cross the T's, we can lead by example. But ultimately, there will come a time where our kids will have to make those decisions down the road for themselves. And you can show them how to do that by making those decisions, and you are. So I just want to give you so much props for the changes you're making and take some of this, what I am perceiving as guilt, off of your plate. And last thing before I give up my moment here, a sick child is not just profitable because of the time these kids will be on medications or be consuming these foods. They've actually managed to influence policy in such a way where medicating a child is more profitable. It's a lower barrier to entry with the medications. The medications are more costly, and they can maintain a monopoly on the medication to keep out generic versions of the medication longer. Just to give you an idea of how insidious and how deep this goes.
The thing that you have to understand is you do have choices here, but you've got to be active in making them. Both of your boys eat breakfast and lunch at school?
They do, yes.
What are they likely facing at school still? I mean, this hasn't changed much.
It's a criminal enterprise. The biggest fast food restaurant in the country is federally funded school lunches, and there is no sugar limit and almost no nutrition guidelines for those. I'm really trying to drive for policy change, and I think we're going to have a transformation in the next couple of years. But when you're talking about breaking the chain, we have a mass addiction crisis in this country when it comes to food. We've been totally bamboozled by that. And it's a serious, serious problem. What we're putting into our body, what we're fueling ourselves with, our metabolic habits when it comes to our sedentary lifestyle, our circadian rhythm and sleep. I mean, these are serious, serious problems. We need to understand that, and we need to break the chain. But that is absolutely what has to happen on a mass societal level. It needs to be all hands on deck. Jillian wasn't wrong when she said this is a societally, destructive, existential threat, which she said in the Senate. She was right.
Yes, absolutely right. No question.
I think it's absolutely essential for us as consumers and for anyone listening who's a physician to come to grips with the idea that we have been lied to about the idea that cholesterol causes heart attacks. That came from the American Heart Association in the 1940s, and it came from the American Heart Association very shortly after they accepted money from Procter & Gamble, like you said, a company that sells seed oils. This cholesterol lie is so powerful because when you take away cholesterol, you take away animal fat. And when you take away animal fat, you take away some of delicious things like butter, like we've talked about, but you also take away something worse, which is traditional cooking. There is no culinary tradition in the entire world that doesn't use animal fats, right? Veganism is not a tradition, it's a kind of a religion or a movement. It's not something that has been with humanity for any period of time. Right. So what we've done is we've disconnected ourselves from the actual real source of nutrition information, which was just people who like to cook, people who raised us, who raised their own children. They wanted to give them the best possible stuff. They wanted to make it taste good because they wanted their children to be healthy. Cholesterol-rich foods are so satiating, and when we scare people away from eating them, we prevent people from getting that natural feeling of like, well, I think I'm done. I can push my plate away now.
All right, another hurdle Caitlin is up against. She lives with a roommate who has similar food issues. Now, Caitlin's friend Michelle says she ignored her diabetes for so long, it caused her to undergo a full hysterectomy. That's next.
Healthy food is expensive. If I could afford to keep healthy food in the house, I would. I am a single mom. I work full time. I get paid bi-weekly, and people are like, oh, paycheck to paycheck. I live paycheck to a few days before paycheck. My issue is, this is like 2 for $10, and this is like $12.99 for 1. It's a struggle. Like, I would love to feed my kids and myself healthy meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks. It's expensive.
Well, we've been talking with Caitlin. Now, her roommate, Michelle, is also here. Now, they've been best friends for 25 years and are living together to save money while raising their sons. Michelle is on her own weight loss journey, but she and her son are also victims of the chronic illness epidemic.
Growing up, I never really had a healthy relationship with food, and I'm still to this day struggling with some serious health issues because of it. My heaviest weight was 225 pounds. I was definitely scared that I was gonna be overweight forever. You get to a point in your life where you feel like this is it. Growing up in my household, it wasn't always the healthiest food choices. We ate a lot of processed, unhealthy foods. 22 years old is when I had gotten to my heaviest, but I really just didn't care. I thought that I was invincible. I didn't know that at 36 years old, I would be severely diabetic. I am so thankful to have my son. That boy is my saving grace. He's saved my life in so many ways, and I'm so thankful for him. I want to provide my son with a safe and healthy environment. I don't want him growing up, ending up with diabetes, having the same complications that I do. That's the last thing that I want for him as a mom. In the last 2 years, I've lost 35 pounds, and it's really changed my outlook on life. I'm more willing to be that active mom and show him a healthy lifestyle. As a country, I don't think the resources to healthy food and learning about healthy food are really there. It's difficult for people to provide that for their families.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You guys have said that it's expensive to eat healthy.
Yes, sir.
And that it's quicker and less expensive sometimes to just pull through and pick up a hamburger or something at McDonald's.
Convenience, for sure.
Convenience is key. Yeah.
But it's not less expensive.
It's, at this point, not anymore, not really.
Because the percentage of the cost of a fast food hamburger or any restaurant that you go to, you can make what you're buying at home for less than half of what you're spending, and you can do it with your kids there.
This is breaking it down per the meal, but I can't go to the store and buy enough lettuce just for one burger. So if you do the totals for what I need to make that meal is going to cost me a lot more in ingredients than it is to just go get that burger.
Oh, no. No, the difference gets bigger when you don't just buy for one.
Yeah.
Because you're going to make 3 or 4 if you've got 4 people there or 5 people there, then the difference gets bigger and bigger.
But I am low income. I have $5.99 to get my son a cheeseburger. I don't have $50 to go buy all of those ingredients.
You don't need $50 every single day. You have to plan and buy ahead of time. Make no mistake, you're paying for a lot of things that are not the food that you're getting. I reject your argument wholly, no matter how much everybody's clapping for what you're saying. I reject that out of hand. You cannot buy fast food cheaper than you can make it at home. You absolutely cannot do it.
What it comes down to, it is the word you already said, planning. But we do not get taught these skills. And if you had to go through bariatric surgery, you probably met with a dietitian. Mm-hmm. Did that dietitian sit down with you and say, let's create a weekly planning, here's how you do it, and here's how you're gonna afford it? What's your budget? Did that happen? And I know this is a rhetorical question, because I know the answer is no. All of my other patients have said, no, I've never heard anything like this, but this is exactly what I need. And normally we would watch this. This gets back to modeling behaviors. We would watch what our parents did and just copy it. But our parents, that wasn't part of the lifestyle. It wasn't that important. It wasn't the priority. And so generation by generation, these skills that are vital skills have fallen by the wayside. And this is the world's #1 problem, is people don't know how to eat.
At a fast food place, what percentage of that $6 did they spend on the meat?
Probably, just pennies. Ground beef is actually one of the best deals in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's about 12%.
Wow.
It's about 12% of ingredients. The rest of it you're paying for the person that cooked it, the person that sacked it, the person that gave it to you, the utilities in the building, the taxes on the building, all of that. It's very expensive to buy fast food.
It is, because we're paying for the convenience.
Yeah, let's acknowledge it is really hard to be healthy in this country. We need to take matters into our own hands. It's the first thing we could do, Dr. Phil. Doctors should say how big of a serious crisis this is and how vital it is to plan at home, how vital it is to actually understand that we can afford healthy food and not to poison ourselves for less than fast food, and tell patients, tell us the truth, that actually it is inconvenient, but we need to do it. Doctors don't mince words when it comes to taking pharmaceutical products. Right? They know how to be very clear. When your child is at the pediatrician's office and you need to get your shots and take your pills, they're very clear, and there's no mincing words about that. We need to get the same tone from our pediatricians about the necessity of reforming what we're feeding our children. That could change behavior overnight. And then, of course, just hearing this conversation, we should all be outraged and appalled at the incentives in our country that are steering hundreds of billions of dollars to this crap.
And you guys are winning. Think about those that aren't. Think about yourself at almost 600 pounds. You're winning, and you're still fighting an uphill battle. And you're winning.
I am.
I mean, both of you guys are winning.
I still have a long way to go. I am still very much overweight. I am still considered morbidly obese, but I am down 200 pounds, and I did that.
That's what I mean. You're winning.
That's good.
I mean, give yourself credit. You're winning, and go to the next level and figure out, how can I win now financially? How can I win now with planning? You got to continue to fight back. But think about where you were before. At 600 pounds, it looks like you could never get anywhere, right? And now a third of a whole person is gone.
I've lost over an average size adult.
Yeah, exactly. All right, coming up, my final thoughts are next. We'll be right back. Well, we have given you lots of facts and truth tonight, and unfortunately, I suspect giving you all the facts in the world will not necessarily change your behavior in a way that can actually make a difference in health outcomes. I doubt there are many of you left in this country who don't know that at some level, many of the health risks are associated with the way you live, whether it's the food you eat or cigarettes you smoke or whatever. If we could eliminate all the bad stuff from the planet, it would be very easy for humans to adapt. If cigarettes were gone tomorrow, or processed food, alcohol, whatever, we would make that adjustment in about 10 days. If early man ate like we do, we would probably have gone extinct a long time ago. When it came to diet, early man had a very original idea. Only eat food. Food is what grows on trees, out of the ground, or is walking, swimming, or flying around. Potato chips, soda, candy, for sure is not food. Pizza, fast food burgers, hot dogs might have a few remnants of food in them, but it still ain't food. The other advantage early man had was that in order to get food, he had to move a lot. I'm guessing in the course of his day, either in the pursuit of food or to avoid being food, early man got his steps in for the day. Eat food and move. Of course, it's more complicated than that, but since we can't get all the bad things off the planet, and we know having the facts will not necessarily make us change, what can we do to reduce the risk of all of our lifestyle diseases? Well, once again, school starts at home. What if every family gathered and made a family project out of making one lifestyle change a month for the next year? One change per month. Either start doing something you're not doing or stop doing something you are doing that would make things better. People will do things and stop doing things over time if the environment you live in requires it. Remember when seat belts were first introduced? Most people didn't like them. Now get in a car with a child and he'll come unglued if you don't buckle up. Before Mothers Against Drunk Driving, friends did let friends drive drunk. They just said, hey, be careful. Now, even teens who drink illegally have a designated driver. We have to take responsibility for our own behavior. And we can blame the scientists who are funded by the pharmaceutical companies and the ag industry. We can blame them. And I do blame them. And you're going to see them held accountable like never before when RFK Jr. assumes control of health and human services, with experts like Callie Means and others who have not sold out, who are not incentivized to keep us all sick. But fortunately, none of the people in that chain will kick your door down and force their way into your home and shove that cupcake down your throat. Likewise, we can blame China or Mexico for drug trafficking into the U.S., but it's we, the people, who line up with the money to buy the drugs. We must hold ourselves accountable as well. I'm not quite dumb enough to think that this message will change the world, but who could argue with the premise? And maybe I can make you think after watching this, sitting at home. Or for those of you here, as you drive away from the studio, at least until you pull into the Burger Doodle on your way home. And don't forget to check out the all-new Dr. Phil podcast with the border czar, Tom Homan. Find out about this Presidential Rank Award recipient and how he's securing the border. You can download, subscribe, and follow and listen to the Dr. Phil podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or on your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time.